Hello and welcome. I am with Thierry Vanlancker, Global CEO of AkzoNobel, the company that manufactures brands, paint brands like that of Dulux. Thierry is here to inaugurate a new plant in Thane here in Mumbai, which is one of the latest additions and investments that the company is making in India, and he'll take us through the road ahead for India. Thierry, thank you so much for speaking with CNBC-TV18, and congratulations on your new plant here.
Thank you. It's like a new baby. We're very proud of it.
Right. Could you run us through the kind of investments that have gone into this plant, and how do you think this plant would make a difference into the Indian business that you're operating here?
So this is for us an investment that was executed very much on time by the Indian team and in perfect budget, but customers are waiting for the output. So it's a sizable investment. It's almost 10 million euros that we invested in it. For us, it's a strategically very important plant. AkzoNobel is one of the largest, one in the top 3 of worldwide coatings and paints suppliers. Powder coatings is where we are the strongest worldwide. We're a clear number 1, about more than twice as big as the number 2. For us, India is one of the fastest growth countries. So you see it coming. If you have one of your strongest segments in one of your strongest growth countries, you want to invest to be able to remain the number 1, become the number 1, and basically keep capturing the growth.
Right. So in terms of growth here in the Indian market, what is the anticipation right now? What's the growth that you're charting right now in India? And, let's say in the next 3 to 4 years time frame, how much do you think it will grow?
Well, I mean, coatings is kind of specific. It typically is about 1.2%, 1.2 times the GDP. So India is probably going to have one of the highest GDP number growths as in the world. So do that 1.2 times and you see where the growth is coming. We're actually very optimistic about India. India is a promising market, has been a promising market, has sometimes been a little bit more with ups and downs. But I think the government has done the right steps with the demonetization. It did hurt us in 2017. Did the right steps with the GST. Did hurt a little bit in the transition in 2017, but I think those are necessary steps to have India really capture its potential, so we're very excited to be part of it.
So revenues, 3,100 crore that we saw in 2000...
For the local company.
For the local company here in India, what is the anticipation in 2 to 3 years' time frame?
Well, I think we'd be disappointed, but don't tell that the local team would be disappointed if it didn't grow at a 10% a year as such, and also bringing then the profitability along.
For AkzoNobel, industrial paints has been the segment where you focused on. That's the largest segment contributing to revenues. What is the revenue mix right now if we talk of decorative paints and industrial? Well, and going forward, do you see that change?
Actually, decorative paint is the largest part of it. I think both of them have been growing at about the same pace, I would say. If I look at decorative paint, that is really GDP business. We have plenty of opportunity, great team in place, so I think that's going to grow at this famous 1.2 times the GDP. If you look at industrial coatings, the growth rate might be slightly higher because we are in segments that are very fast growing. In the whole coatings industry, powder coatings is the fastest growing segment. And that's exactly where we are very strong. So.
Right. So, and if we talk of the competition in the Indian market, you have giants like that of Asian Paints, then you have Berger Paints, who have captured a larger share of the market. What is your, plan right now to increase your market share in the Indian market? What is it currently, and how do you intend to compete with these giants?
Correct. Well, the 2 companies you just mentioned are really very much in decorative paint, and then they have industrial coatings. But I would say in the whole industrial performance coatings part, I think we can really hold our own right there. The one thing we're not going to do is compromise on the quality, not compromising on the premium where we are, because that's where a big multinational company was. That's where our strength is. Our strength is in having world-class products, as you see, a plant that's really world-class. And I think the team is working very methodical to keep gaining share, to keep having a very strong business. So we're not that obsessed by the revenue or by doing something crazy to try to catch up on the revenue.
So you are happy at the growth that you are right now and the market share that you are in India right now? Or is there an ambition?
We're never happy with any market share we have anywhere. But the point is we're not going to do crazy things to try to artificially increase that. What we see in India, that we gradually increasing our share, and I think we do it in a way that it's sustainable, that is really helping our customers. and that really plays to our strength.
So, what is your ambition right now for your brands like that of Dulux, which compete directly in the market with Asian Paints or Berger and Nerolac for that matter? What is your ambition for that product? What is the ambition on the decorative paint side? Because we were reading somewhere that you're also looking to expand your Dulux Promise, which is the mass market product.
Correct.
So what is the plan there?
Correct. Well, Dulux is probably the best known worldwide brand in decorative coatings, and we're very proud of having it as part of our portfolio. In India, it has been catering a lot, like in the rest of the world, to the premium segment, and that is growing quite nicely in India. We have been somewhat hesitant to go more into the mass market, but often that gives you somewhat of an issue or a disadvantage in your distribution, because the distributor retailer wants to have the whole portfolio. So we've been indeed expanding the brand so that we have, I would say, mass products to drive also the growth there. But again, that we do in a very controlled way, because we could go really very wild in the mass market. We are a company that really has to cater to quality, to sustainable products, and in fact we want to keep the brand value intact. So that's the story behind having those backup products behind it.
Right. And you speak about being in the premium product segment. Despite being in a premium product segment, your margins in the India business have not been as strong as your competitors. What's the plan there? How are you looking at the margin picture?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the can of paint itself, I think we're holding our own. Of course, the larger you are, the more that you can actually leverage your volume over your cost. And that's what we're playing on. In fact, this investment here in the powder coating is definitely one that's going to help. What we try to do is having highly specialized products that basically bring a good margin, and adding it there where we can bring the most value.
If we talk of the overall market growth competition, what are the drivers that you think would help your brands like that of Dulux and your industrial powders paint and the industrial paint segment grow in India?
There's two things. So if you look at the Dulux, so the decorative paints, is obviously it's life quality, it's ease of use, it's really having paint that protect your, from many people, the key real estate asset that they own. And I think we're doing very well, all the way from UK, where we're the very dominant player, to places in the rest of Europe, to here in Asia, in China and in India, where we're building our franchise very strongly. So I think there it's consumer preference, going for better quality products, indoor quality, which is very important, going to waterborne paints, etc. So that's the whole lifestyle quality that goes along with it. And as you know, AkzoNobel has been for many years the #1 in Dow Jones sustainability, so sustainable products is very high in our flag for the company. If you go for powder coatings, it actually fits also with the sustainability angle. Powder coatings obviously don't need a solvent, so if you go for organic components, it's the ultimate in sustainability. And over time, what you've seen sometimes with powder coatings is that it didn't give the same aesthetics. Since we're the leader, we put a lot of R&D budget in making that better. And right now, our high-end powder coatings, you can't see the difference anymore. But you need less heat, you have no organic solvent, so it's just an ease of application. And that's where we're playing. Powder coatings is growing extremely fast worldwide, double digits worldwide, and it's significant double digits here in India, hence this plan.
What are the key challenges that you're facing right now? What are the headwinds that you think your company here in India, in the business, as well as globally, is facing, which could slow down the growth that you are anticipating?
Well, two things. One, the whole industry has been suffering of raw material increases quite significantly. I mean, if you look at some key raw materials like titanium dioxide has been going up in price quite a lot, and that's a significant cost factor. So that has driven the need in the whole industry to try to get the prices up for our products. And that always gives a lot of dust cloud in the market on who goes first, etc., etc. So raw material cost has been a big item. The second challenge is for us, specifically in a country like India, is where do we choose to grow? Because there's so much opportunity that if you're not careful, we have 100 people, each one working on one of the 100 different opportunities. So that's where we're coming back to your question, how are you going to grow? Is by choosing very carefully where we feel we can really make a difference, while gradually working on our other franchises. Powder coatings is obviously one where we have a real strong position, and where we in India have all the opportunity to leverage that even more and take an advantage there.
Okay. It's been a year since you've taken over your global business and your role as global CEO of AkzoNobel. Big things that you've been dealing with in terms of, call for acquisitions, call for takeovers. Where does, India fit into the entire big strategy, the global strategy that you are charting out now for AkzoNobel?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it has been a busy year, as you might imagine. If you look at where India fits, it really fits in the middle of our Asia strategy. If you look for the non-Asian suppliers, AkzoNobel has been notoriously successful in creating its Asian franchise. Very strong position in China, very strong position in Southeast Asia. India is the country where we say, well, that is a big country. A lot of Indian people, who are getting increasingly affluent. So for us, it is a pillar, but a pillar we want to develop much more in our Asian strategy. And I think that is a bit the envy from our competitors, that we are so strong in Asia. And I think it's been by having very strong local teams in India, in China, to develop the market.
Do you think, while you've been in India for many years, you've been a little slow in terms of how you looked at the Indian market in terms of growth, in terms of, expanding your presence, and the competitors in that sense have taken over? Do you think the strategy somewhere was not focusing on India till now that you would want to change?
I would say so. I think we're very happy with our Indian business and how to develop it. Of course, as part, the Indian organization, of course, then is part of a multinational group. Shareholders internationally look for something different than just growth. They look for returns. So I think, unlike some of the more family-owned businesses that we sometimes compete with, they have more the liberty to go long-term and just weather the storm. Sometimes we have to have a continuous performance, and that is the advantage of being multinational, but there's also some disadvantages there.
And in India, you continue to want to be called the premium product maker.
Absolutely.
And not compete entirely into the mass market segment.
No, but I think what you will see is getting more products in the mass market, but we probably would have then something special to offer. I think you would not see us go just into a market where there's 15 other suppliers to get in there, because that's not the company we are.
So the distempers of the world are not your sort of business products that you would come
I think we try to look at what value can we bring in whatever segments, what value can we bring that others are not bringing there yet, either in quality or in performance or anything.
So between China and India, in the Asian markets, which is a faster growing player, and where do you see more amount of opportunity coming in?
Well, I think I would say faster growing. I would say in the past years, China has probably been growing more steadily as such. I mean, India has had a couple of ups and downs, corrections, which in a probably more controlled economy like in China is not the case. The opportunity is probably bigger here in India.
The consumer opportunity. The
consumer opportunity, because China is becoming more and more a mature market, whereas in India, and you see that the growth numbers are significantly higher in our industry than they are in China. India is really going for a leap forward, and
how do you think the policy is designed, to support the growth that you are looking forward to, especially from the consumer side?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. I think the one thing that always was a bit more complicated in India is how to do business. The demonetization helps. It was very painful at that moment, but I think it is a necessary medicine for the future. If you go to the GST, is obviously something that is really necessary for the country. It makes trading so much easier. And I think consumers are going to start seeing that just makes things easier. It's a little bit like the European Union. It's a little bit the Indian Union that happens, and it makes flow of products much easier and much better.
What sort of an impact, did demonetization and GST combined have?
Well, on the demonetization, obviously the market went down a little bit in the beginning, the first quarter of 2017. The GST is maybe going to have, for us, might have a bit of a negative in the tax rate, but at the same time, it just has a very positive on the future, on the ease of trade. Getting a material from one side of India to the other side has still always been a bit of a challenge in time, and that is just going to be, hopefully with some infrastructure that comes along, that would basically bring India enormously a step forward, and actually might be the envy of China, by the way, if they keep evolving in that way.
Right. What are the global headwinds, that you're facing right now? Currency was one, I think, that impacted your business last year to a great extent. What are the other global headwinds that you're facing?
Well, indeed, currency, as you say, is a big one. We are a euro-based company, and the euro has been quite strong. So that obviously gives all sorts of challenges. Raw materials is another big one. The third one I would say is the Brexit for us. I mean, that makes life a bit more complicated. But as such, I think there's lots of opportunities. So I would say those are more macroeconomic challenges that are the same for everybody. I think within the company, I think we feel pretty comfortable on where we can take the business even.
It's been a year since you took over, and there have been a lot of talks of mergers, takeovers. There were discussions that you were having, because that was something that your former CEO kind of avoided, said we want to go alone. What is the strategy on that front? How is global AkzoNobel looking at growing?
Yeah. Well, I think there's plenty of opportunity for organic growth. There is obviously consolidation going on in the industry. We've acquired a couple of companies, smaller companies in powder coating in Thailand, a couple of companies in Europe in the meantime. So the smaller players are ready for a consolidation, and that's where we definitely want to play our game. The big consolidation, and you probably refer to the episode beginning of the year, there are opportunities there, but for us it's really what makes sense. So we're not looking at that actively. We're also in the news of looking at another company like Axalta to do something. That was more because that conversation started and say this is an opportunity, but as you've seen, we didn't go forward with that because there's plenty of opportunity in our own business. We're not adverse for joining up with somebody else, but it's not a must, and it's probably a timing valuation issue to see whether it makes sense or not. A big acquisition, either whether you get acquired or you acquire somebody, also has a hidden cost of an enormous distraction in the business. So therefore you want to really place your bets very carefully. And I think there's enough momentum in each of our segments for paints and coatings that we do not need it. We don't need it for the scale, we don't need it for our profitability. So we have a somewhat relaxed attitude to see, we'll see what comes along and decide whether that is something for us or whether we continue to work our very well-oiled machine right now. So
Nippon, Axalta, you were having talks with them, but you're saying you're not right now in talks with these companies.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But there is a possibility of you looking at more acquisitions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's part of the business model where we look at smaller bolt-on acquisitions, as they call them, that either fit in a product strategy or they fit into a country strategy. And we've done 3 in the last year that really fit in technology or country, and we'll continue to do that.
Going forward, when you would look at acquisitions, would India feature somewhere there? Like in the Indian market, would you be looking at any acquisitions?
I think India, being a very exciting growth market, would definitely be a market that we would be looking at. But again, it has to be the right opportunity at the right time, but absolutely.
So right now in the Indian business, which are the gaps that you think you could fill in through an acquisition?
It's maybe less a story of gaps. It's more a story around how quickly can you get scale. In a specific segment on that, and there you always have to weigh the choice of either we do it ourselves and we chip away and get more shares step by step, or if there's a good opportunity and a good value, can you do an acquisition? So it's not a gap story, it's an opportunity to accelerate.
So do you think you took over at a turbulent time when the company was going through a lot of turbulence? There have been issues and concerns raised by minority shareholders, the kind of dialogues that you've been having. Do you think it's been really a turbulent time that you took over? And what is your mantra? What is your strategy now?
I would call it more exciting times. It's if I look at AkzoNobel, and I'm a little bit more than a year in the company, it's a very good company, lots of opportunities. And sometimes when you have a crisis moment, it actually drives a change of attitude, and it drives more performance. And that's what I see in all of the corners of the company, is that all of our employees, our 47,000 employees around the world, want to prove that they can do it just a little bit better than they did it the day before. So I would call it turbulent, I would call it exciting, lots of opportunities, and I'm actually enjoying it every day.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for sparing time for CNBC-TV18.
Thank you.